You are now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We're coming to you live on February 24th, 2026. If you've never attended an NLC webinar before, our Cathedra webinars get their name from the Greek word for learning. And today you're going to be learning how to use Agile to help your team avoid burnout from Diane Leonard, who is the president of DH Leonard Consulting and Grant Writing Services, LLC. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're also happy you could tune in for the webinar today. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud. There we go. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here. This is just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Moving forward, if you want to share this course with a friend or a colleague, or you want to just simply revisit it, you can find it in the courses section. That's where you can also find a PDF of the slides, but I did already put the link for that for you today in the chat, and I'll do so once again, just in case you missed it. If you opt to attend another one of our webinars in the future, and we hope you do, you'll just log in like you did today and then click on that green banner at the top of the screen. If a webinar is happening live, you will see that green banner. We do ask that you join with listen-only capabilities because we are recording the webinar. It helps to cut down on audio feedback for the recording, as well as avoid distraction for the instructor once they take over. If you did join and maybe your sound's coming out of the wrong device, maybe you're trying to use your headphones, perhaps a Bluetooth speaker, whatever the case might be, you can come down to the bottom of the screen where I have a telephone icon displayed in the screenshot. Yours might instead be a headset icon. But either way, you can click on that icon and it'll bring up a list of your speaker devices and you can select the proper audio output. Even though we ask you to join on mute to cut back on any audio feedback, we do still want to encourage class participation. And we will rely primarily on the public chat to do that. If you don't yet have it expanded, you can come over to the messages column in gray to the left-hand side of your screen and select public chat. That will open up a chat between you, the webinar attendees, me, the NLC staff, and your instructor, Diane Leonard. If you want to say or ask something, perhaps there's some tech support issues I can help you navigate through, you'll just come down to this little box that says send message to public chat, click on it, type in what you want to say or ask, and then you can either hit enter or you can select the paper airplane button, and that will send it in where everybody can see it. While I've put the link to the presentation slides in the chat for you already, there is still a list of other helpful links, and you can find that in the shared notes section. That is accessible right below the messages option in the messages panel, or I'm sorry, the public chat option. We have a link to today's webinar feedback survey, a link to the presentation slides, one that'll take you to our YouTube where all the other recorded webinars are, the link you can bookmark in the future so that you can just log in quickly, all kinds of good stuff in there. So I encourage you to check that out. And then if you did join, but you didn't mute yourself already, you can do so by clicking on the microphone button down at the bottom of the screen. And if at some point in the webinar you ask something in the chat and you think maybe we missed you, you can use that hand raise feature. We'd love it if you tested out the public chat by introducing yourselves to everybody else. It's always fun to see who all is present in the webinar. You can let us know your name, where you're tuning in from, your work or your role in Indian country that maybe led you to the webinar today, and your tribal affiliation. If you have one, you might be somebody who is a tribal employee and you thus do not have your own tribal affiliation. That's okay. You are absolutely welcome also. And just a quick final warning while y'all are introducing yourselves in the chat. You should have a red menu column all the way to the left-hand side of your screen. If you don't have it expanded, you might be looking at just the list of icons. I just want to give you a heads up that if you click on that red menu panel, it is going to pull you from the webinar and take you to whatever you selected on the panel. There won't be like a warning message of, are you sure you want to leave the webinar? It's just going to put you to wherever you selected. If it does happen, not to worry, you'll just click on that green banner at the top of the screen to rejoin the webinar, but just want to give you a heads up because it can be kind of jarring. All right, and then while y'all continue to introduce yourselves in the chat, it is with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor for today, the goddess of grants herself, as we at the NLC call her, Diane Leonard. And Diane, I have made you presenter now.
Thank you, Brooke. You say that every time just to make me chuckle. I'm like, oh, but we're talking about something that's bigger than grants today. So I know that's like super surprising for me. You always are used to, as participants in Native Learning Center webinars, you know me for grants. But today we're going to talk about Agile. And the burnout word goes hand in hand, unfortunately, with grants. So I think you'll see why this all comes together. But it's for far more folks in an organization, in any role, in any title, than just grants. So there's more stuff on my bio slide than usual for the Native Learning Center. It is not only about my background in grants. My undergraduate degree was about organizational development, so it's come full circle that I love to talk about how teams work together, how we can support each other to operate and work at a sustainable pace in a way that helps us still to achieve our mission and our program and service goals, but in a way that also protects us, the awesome people who are doing the work. So that's just a little bit about the connection between why, yes, I talk about grants all the time, but why this Agile thing? Why is it such an important focus for how my team and I operate? We've used this way of working without the label for all 20 years of being in business, formally using the label of Agile for more than 10 at this point. So, yep, we're pretty committed. And it's not about, I just want to be super clear, it's not about a specific technology. It's not about a specific framework. That is not the purpose of today at all. Rather, it's to look at different examples, to talk about some case studies, to give you some ideas for how you can actually work together in a way that is going to be successful for you. And so each of you might have a very different answer for what you're going to try based on today's session. I'm going to give you a lot of different ideas. In fact, let's look at the agenda. We're going to talk about how we can form an Agile team, whether we want to call it that or not. We can think about some of the different ways we can structure our work teams in order to be more agile in our approach, to avoid burnout, to be more sustainable. We're going to think about each of you and your unique contributions. And so this is going to mean lots of ideas, lots of examples that could fuel or inspire some ideas, but there is zero pressure. In fact, there's no I don't want you to take all the things we talk about today and put them in place tomorrow or next Monday. I don't want you to do that. I want you listening for one thing. I want you to listen for one thing that you think will help you and your team be better, work better, be more sustainable, reduce your risk for burnout. But I just want you to come up with one thing. I'm going to ask you at the end, what is your one thing? In fact, I'm making a sticky note reminder for myself so I don't get all excited at the end. I'm going to ask you, what is the one thing? Why are we going to talk about just one thing? Because if we change more than one thing about the way that we are working at the same time, if we change two things, if we change four things, if we change seven things about the way we're working together as a team, we won't know which thing had the positive impact, or maybe the neutral impact, or maybe a negative impact, an unexpected negative impact. We just won't know because we changed too many things. So we just want to always try one idea, one thought, one hypothesis when it comes to how our team works together. Change one thing, let it settle, see what impact it had, and then we can come back and try something else. So we're going to think about what it means to be an agile team. And I know I talk about books all the time. You can see from right behind me, I've got a pile of books that are always right on hand. Some are grants, others are more about Agile. And so I want to actually reference some of the initial work that was done and published about nonprofit professionals and burnout. So Beth Cantor and Eliza Sherman published The Happy, Healthy Nonprofit. Big, broad umbrella term. Yes, I'm going to include tribal organizations and your employees in this conversation. Government employees also, I'm going to include them in this conversation, not just traditional 501c3s. The Happy Healthy Nonprofit showed that things were not all sunshine and roses for nonprofit professionals. They were facing compassion fatigue. They were facing burnout. They were putting the community members that they serve ahead of themselves. Could be that we were thinking about healthcare. Could be that we were thinking about teachers. Could be social workers. Anyone in the sector was at high risk for not caring for themselves enough, which means it's not sustainable. So this book, it's a great one still. It's right here on my shelf. I do encourage you to check out their work at the Happy Healthy Nonprofit. And yeah, the book's in the library. You can find it at independent bookstores. Some great reading if you're really interested in this topic. But there's been some more recent research. This one's specific to grant professionals. I cannot take credit for this research. These are some of my dear friends and colleagues, though, that put this work together. The Happy Healthy Grant Pro, there were 4 individuals who came together to do all sorts of research over multiple years. In fact, they were published. Here, I've got one of the journals right here. They were published in the Grant Professionals Association Journal multiple times. Their research, it confirmed burnout for grant professionals is real. It is very real, and it is a high rate of turnover as a result. Okay, so what do we do with that knowledge? We've got folks saying big, broad picture nonprofit professionals are burned out. I've got very niche research that says grant professionals are burned out. And usually you're all used to me talking about grants, so it makes sense that I pay a lot of attention to that research. I don't want the grant professionals that work for me being burned out. I don't want my peer grant writers and grant professionals to be burned out. What do we do? This is where Agile can come in. And so Agile is not a software. It is not a specific tool. It is not a specific set of meetings. It is not a specific framework. Agile is about values. So I'm going to explain to you what these 4 values mean and why they matter. But first, I would love to ask you a question in the public chat. If you would be so kind and so willing to answer, on a scale of 1 to 10, how knowledgeable are you about Agile? It's a self-assessment. There's no judgment in your answer. 1, you're learning about it for the first time today. 10, you love it. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to unmute, but 10, you love it, but you're super excited to see it in this context. 1 to 10, just a scale of what your knowledge is related to Agile. That would be really helpful as we get started today. And again, there's no judgment. I just want to get a sense of who's here in the room as we get the conversation started. So these 4 Agile values, these are values that were formalized into an internationally agreed upon document back in 2001. That was a long time ago, right? I'm like, was that really like 25 years ago? The answer is yes. Yes, it was. So what happened is 13 individuals came together at a ski lodge, in fact, and they had all individually come up with different ways that teams were working. What is it that they could create? These were the creators of frameworks, of tools, of structures, of rules for how teams could best work together. Things like the Scrum framework, things like Kanban, things like extreme programming. A lot of the folks that were in that room, yeah, they were software oriented for why they had created these ways of working, this structure that was supposed to help, well, basically, adults work better together. These are the 4 values that those individuals agreed on. They said, this is what we have in common. Not which one's better, not which one works best in which situation, not which tool. No. They said, this is what our commonality is, these 4 values. Now you can find more about these 4 values at the Agile Manifesto website. And I want to highlight that the Agile Manifesto is internationally what folks rely on. And so when we think about the Agile Manifesto, all industries, all languages, and the cool part is that it is occasionally even updated by the Agile community itself, more like crowdsourced. So let me just make sure. Yep, agilemanifesto.org. I typed it right. I've got a link there for you in the public chat if you wanted to go read the whole manifesto. You don't have to. These 4 values, you don't have to memorize them either. But these 4 values should be the foundation of high-performing teams in any workplace setting. So I want to give you examples from nonprofit charitable organizations of these 4 values, and then give you some ideas on how you can ensure that they are present in your team. The presence of these 4 values, the focus on them, is part of what the case studies show will reduce burnout in professionals, will increase the sustainability of how individuals work together, will overall, over time, increase actually the impact that they create together because they learn how to work together even better than they have been up to now. So our first value, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And what's important about the structure of the way these 4 values is written is that there is a phrase, and then there's the word over in all caps, and then there's a second phrase. So in this first value, individuals and interactions, we are prioritizing these. They are more important over processes and tools. It does not mean that we delete, cross out, stop paying attention to, ignore processes and tools. No, that's not the case at all. But the value, what it means when it's in place in a team, is that we place more emphasis on who we are as individual team members and how we work together. We place more emphasis on that than we do on the processes and the tools. What does that standard operating procedure document say? Yeah, that's important, but I care more about you as my teammate and as a person than I do about what that document says. Okay, that's like the simplified version of it. So the example I have on the screen, these are actually the 4 individuals who did the Healthy Grant Pro research. Let me introduce you from left to right. Left-hand side, Jonna Rogers, Bethany Planton, Trish Bachman, and Patricia DuBois. These 4 individuals come from 4 different organizations. These 4 individuals were in different states. These 4 individuals have different working hour preferences. These 4 individuals, some were consultants, some were employees, so they had different levels of flexibility in their daily schedule. These individuals had very different preferences on which type of technology system they like to work in. Some are Microsoft Office hands down all day long. Others very much in favor of Google Drive. Please don't make me work outside of Google Drive, would be what Bethany Planton would say to you. So we've got lots of differences in these 4 folks, but they came together for a shared purpose, and that shared purpose was to do research around burnout in the grant profession. So they came up with some basic ideas for how they would work together, but they were constantly having to think about who they were working with, who was the person, what was their preference, how could they best interact together in service of their shared purpose. I share it as an example because it had such a great ending. They had multiple journal articles that were published. And I share it as an example because I know firsthand, having led many nonprofit collaborations where there were multiple organizations, collaborations across organizations are tough. Even within one big organization, collaborations across departments within one organization can be tough. And those are often the situations where this value is going to be important to focus on and to have be present. So that's value 1. Value 2. The idea here is working product. I'll explain what that is in a minute. Over comprehensive documentation. So working product is more important in a team setting than comprehensive documentation. Sounds like a lot of jargon, doesn't it? Working product, drafts, something that people can see, read, touch, feel, experience, and give feedback on, is more important than a document full of all the requirements. more important than a list of all the things that will happen. The example on the screen is a photo from the first LEGO League World Championship. There's two things about it that are really cool nonprofit examples. First, that is actually the nonprofit organization internationally that runs this STEM-focused program, and it's for a wide range of ages for children and youth. So cool that FIRST as a nonprofit is teaching youth all these different agile ways of working. They're teaching them to be iterative. They're teaching them to work in team settings, thinking that'll probably help them down the road. The comprehensive documentation part here is what you see on the screen. These are kids that are learning how to code robots. They use Legos to help build them, but they're coding. And they have to be able to document what is the code they created. They can see it, they could print it, they could put it in binders. So there's a lot of documentation. But if your robot doesn't actually move, if it doesn't achieve any of the missions that have been set out for that year's competition, you don't get to go to the Worlds event because your robot's just going to sit there. So you could have all the great printouts ever that these kids could create. But if their robot can't also perform, if they haven't tested it, hey, does it make the robot go forward or backwards? They're not going to do anything. They're not going to win their regional competition. They're not going to get to go to Worlds. I know this firsthand. I was a first LEGO League coach for years. You'd see some really cool designs and you're like, wow, but it's got to actually move. It's got to actually do something. Now I get it. I don't think any of us on the line today are worried about building robots with Legos, unless maybe you also happen to be a first LEGO League coach these days. But the idea, that visualization, when I saw it, I'm like, that's a really cool way to remember. It doesn't matter if we have it all documented. If it doesn't do something of value, if it doesn't help someone, so what? That's value 2, working product over comprehensive documentation. Value 3. This is my team on the screen right here. Look at those friendly faces. These are members of the D.H. Leonard consulting team. And the reason that I have their smiling faces on the screen for you as an example of this value, well, I'll explain in a minute. The value is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. That it is more important to collaborate with customers than it is to say, here's what the contract says. Now, to be super clear, and I'll come back to their smiling faces in a moment. Customer is a really weird word in the Agile Manifesto. It represents stakeholders, community members. Yes, you could say customers, but this is a podcast that I'm a part of, and we explain that it's, yes, customer is the formal word in the value, but it means a whole lot more than that because it's used in so many other settings. So don't get held up in the customer language. Stakeholders, community members, also all totally fine. And I will put a link for you to the Agile Driven podcast. I will put a link in the chat for you here in just a minute. So when we think about what this value means, let's go back to those smiling faces. So the smiling faces on the screen here are smiling because, well, grant makers sometimes, with all due respect, because I was one early in my career, sometimes ask for things last minute, unexpectedly. And the reality is that, yeah, as grant seeker, we do the things. We do what they ask of us. Well, the folks on the screen are grant professionals. They're used to supporting the writing work of a wide range of organizations. And so that means that they might get a call or an email from one of their partners that says, so I just heard from the funder, and they said that if they're going to consider our grant for $25,000, they have to have a 2-page proposal by Friday. You're like, but it's 2:30 Eastern on Tuesday. Really? Okay. So the customer collaboration part, the stakeholder collaboration part, the community member collaboration part is like, okay, well, your contract says that I need to have 14 days notice, or your contract says we're only doing 10 proposals. This would make 11. The contract is going to say all sorts of things. The scope of work is going to say all sorts of things. But the reality is, well, we work together. We're partners in a project with specific goals. How can we collaborate to meet whatever the thing is that has been presented to us? In my storied example, it's about how do we meet this requirement for a last minute proposal, but one that's going to have some strong return on investment for us if we collaborate to get it done. No one would be smiling if they were like, hey, sorry, you're on your own. Sorry, that's it. We're out of scope. Nope. There won't be a lot of smiles on either side. I'm not saying you just go all in and have to do heroic efforts, but to have a conversation about, okay, so how do we navigate this together? That is what the Agile value is about. And our fourth, but it shouldn't be like the final value. In fact, it's one of my favorites, if I can have a favorite, is responding to change over following a plan. Now, this Agile value means that we are going to react. Things changed and we're like, okay, what do we need to do differently? Versus, instead of, more than, over, saying, here's what the plan says, and so we have to follow the plan. Now, this Agile value, it's always, since I learned about the Agile Manifesto, this has always been one of my favorites because I will use this value. I will like flag myself personally and professionally. I'll be like, whew, today's not going as planned. It's a snow delay for school. Got to change my whole calendar. Oh, there's a line at the tire store. I thought this was going to go faster. Okay, I'm going to respond to change for my plan for the day. And it happens at work all the time. So to me, this value is one that I can use and practice, personal, professional, combination of both. So I love it. And it's a value that many professionals experienced in their work. We all experienced it personally during the pandemic. There were plans, and then there was the adaptation of plans. And one of my favorite examples that nonprofit organizations of all sorts of different shapes and sizes had to pivot around was around the production of art, the production of theater, the production of singing events. I can't tell you how many different digitally produced events I went to during the height of the pandemic. Because I thought it was so cool. I'm like, wow, how did they make all these kids in the Chicago Children's Choir? How did they get that to happen? Because like, have you ever tried to sing even something like a happy birthday over Zoom? You're out of sync. So this value, to me, there were just so many beautiful examples of people without the label putting this value into place. But like I said, day to day, something goes awry. I'm like, oh, I'm going to use my Agile values. I'm going to remember that we're going to respond to change and focus on that more than what did the perfect plan for the day say. So those 4 values, those are what are really driving the idea of an Agile team who's trying to create their best impact together, who are trying to create change and impact for whatever your work is. And one of the things that I always enjoy when I come to a Native Learning Center is learning about the work that you're focusing on right now. So, for example, we were talking about red thread storytelling just 2 weeks ago. And we talked about domestic violence support programs. We talked about law enforcement education. We talked about housing. It was a really wide range of programs and services and projects that were represented in the public chat. And I see some names that I recognize from previous webinars, but there's folks here, hi, that I don't know. I would love to know, what is your team's focus? What is the thing that your team does? You might say, I'm part of many teams. Pick one. That's cool that you're part of many, but pick one then for my answer. If you could let me know words, quick phrase in the public chat, what is the work that your team is trying to achieve together? I think it would be really cool to get to know just a little bit more about the work that your team does. So if you could let me know in the public chat, quick words, phrases, What is it that your team is doing together? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just so that I can get a sense of who's here, what's going on, what's the cool work that you're doing. Better communications, and even, you know what, I'm even going to like call Brooke into the public chat. Brooke, not that you have to type in, but I'm thinking like the Native Learning Center team that Brooke is a part of. They're a team that's focused on providing a really wide range of trainings, different mediums, online, in person, short format, long format. They're coming together to ensure that there's lots of professional development opportunities for their tribal community. Okay, let's see. Awesome. We're seeing lots of other team focus points here. Affordable housing, safe housing for Rachel, creating safe, affordable, sustainable communities through hope, healing, and housing for Mariah. That's great. Trying to build tenant self-sufficiency for Philistine, meet deadlines and remain in compliance. Whew, yeah, Andrea, right? You probably looked at that one value where you're like, comprehensive documentation is super important to maintaining compliance. I agree with you. That's why we never get rid of things like that. Oh my gosh, HIPAA compliance? Whew, nope, always important. But we want to remember how we interact together. It's not that we get rid of those things, it's how we think about the way we work together. Oh, and look, I called Brooke into the public chat and she did. Thanks, Brooke. Okay, so when we think about your teams, you all are doing really different things and you have different levels of staffing capacity, and that's fine because being an agile team doesn't mean how many people and how do we meet and when do we meet and what do we, doesn't mean any of that. What it means is that each of you in your teams are trying to keep those 4 agile values present so that you can work towards your unique mission, so that you can achieve your organizational goals. So let's think about what those steps are. What's going to help us ensure we have shared understanding of purpose and goals? So we need to think about who's at our table. Who do we have around us? In your team, you are probably known for a particular rock star skill. Okay, maybe more than one rock star skill, maybe lots of rock star skills. But what would you say is the strongest skill that you bring to your team? What do folks rely on you for? Is it your attention to copy editing detail? Is it your creativity in design? Is it, I don't know, I'm going to stop making things up. I'm going to let you type it in the chat box for me, please. I'm going to put a delineator in the chat. Please, I know this might feel awkward. I'd love for you to humble brag. What is it that you bring that is a really strong skill, a rock star quality, if you're willing to embrace that phrase? What is it that you bring to your team that is awesome? People rely on it, they appreciate it, you are really proud of it. There's no right or wrong answer here. It could be anything. It could even be your punny sense of humor. Yes, my team is used to that. They know that I share gifts sometimes that are extra punny if we're feeling like it's a tough moment. Punny sense of humor. Sometimes I do it unintentionally. And people are like, that was a good one. I was like, what? Oh, I didn't. Sometimes that's how I lighten the mood. And I acknowledge it and I accept it even when it makes my teenagers roll their eyes at home. So that might be what I say I bring. All right, years of housing knowledge. Yeah, expertise. High five. I love it. Efficiency and time management. Yep, I'm getting the yellow dingy bell to celebrate that. Absolutely. Oh, more experience, effectiveness, understanding the team's time, understanding each person, bringing different perspectives. Awesome. This is amazing. Okay, now I'm going to make it not about you. Sometimes it's easier to like humble brag about other people instead of yourself. I get that. I want you to type in the initials of someone you work with on your team and now tell me their initials and their awesome quality. What is something that you know you can count on them for? Doesn't matter what it is. It could be the magic way that they work with budgets in Excel. It could be the way that they design presentations that have to go before, uh, a leadership team. Anything. Their initials, because we don't want to have to call them up by name, but we're going to like give them some good thoughts. And so initials and what is their amazing thing that they bring to the team. All right. PS is getting a call out for compliance. CT for all their ideas. PH for policy. Oh, I love it. See, now also optional homework. The next time you talk to this person or you message with them in Teams or wherever, like, hey, were your ears ringing? Like, I was saying really nice things about you in the chat today at a native learning webinar. And then we'll be like, you were? And you'll be like, yeah, because you're awesome. So you could just use it as an excuse to remind them that they're awesome if you think that that would help their day. BT, final signatures walkthrough. FT, dedication to job. For tribal land assignments, for knowledge, for experience, knowledge and wisdom and experience. Oh, isn't this feel good? I love it. Okay, communication, there's so much. So you are one of the right people, and you've just called out why there's some of the other right people. Sometimes in a team setting, you recognize that there's something missing. And it might not be that you have the capacity to like hire another person to do the thing. Totally get that. But it could be that you're like, oh, there's a little bit of knowledge that we need about whatever. We don't have it. But you know who does? This person over here in this department, or this person in this collaborative group over there. I wonder if they could be like a friend of our team for a little bit. I wonder if like we could borrow them just every once in a while, like if they would feel comfortable knowing that we might call on them because we need that knowledge to be our best team. That's allowable. Yeah, you could totally do that. I think friend of the team is a fun way to give them a little bit of acknowledgement for the contribution they're making. But that's just a fun extra label that I have fun using in our own team environment. But you want to bring the right people together. They'll make you better. They'll make you stronger. They will take your rock star qualities and it will make it even better. Because by having the right people together with those agile values in mind, now you can say, okay, so team, here is why we are together. We've got our mission for the work we're doing, whether it was housing or right, any of the stuff you shared earlier. Here's what we're trying to do together. We know here are the awesome qualities and skills and knowledge and experience that we have together in the room. Here's some of our extra resources that we've pulled for some other people that might be friends of our team. Now, how do we think we're going to get from point A to point B? How are we going to accomplish this work together? Self-organization as a phrase. Let me know in the public chat. Y for yes, N for no. Have you heard this phrase before in the workplace? Self-organization. Y for yes, N for no. I'll be honest. I was like, wait, what does that mean? Like I'm used to organization. I'm thinking about like how I like might structure something or how I might organize my digital files or how I might organize my desk. First time I heard it, I was like self-organization. So you're talking about like me as a person and how I organize? And the very thoughtful agile coach that I was talking with was like, yes, and I love it when people say that. Yes, and right, they're going to build on what I said. So yes, and how does the team organize around the work? How does the team, using the awesome things that you just typed in the public chat, decide what's the best way for us to try and get this done? It might be something a little bit differently. It might be a little bit out of the box. It might be a little bit different than what it's looked like before, unless, of course, there are compliance issues at hand. And then, yes, please, let's follow those. But are there any other different ways that we could try and get the work done? It helps the team to own the work more, and it also brings about more creative solutions. So this idea of self-organization is that the team is constantly saying, here's how we think are the best ways to do this. Here's the best way we want to do that. Again, regardless of what type of work you're doing. Every team should have the opportunity to approach their work in the way that is best tied to and best built on their knowledge and skills. What this does, this idea that, hey, we know what we're headed towards. We know our goal. We know our purpose. We know we've got these awesome, right people in the room. And yeah, we've got a little bit of flexibility here in how we're going to do the work. We've been empowered to try and figure out the best way to get this goal achieved. That's going to help us to have those agile values be present every day. Because knowing we've got the people in the room and what the different skills are, that's going to help us think about those individuals that we're going to be interacting with. If we're thinking about our purpose, well, yeah, that's super transparent. We are moving towards this point. There's no question about why. There's nothing hidden about it. There's no extra agenda. It's transparent. We want to move this way as a team. We're trying to achieve this. And the idea of self-organization is that we will constantly as a team have new ideas. Before I logged on for Tech Check with Brooke today here for the webinar, I was in a Zoom meeting with my team, and there's a process we had just recently changed. And it was about how, when we work with a new organization, how is it that we get some of their program design documents ready for grant applications? And so they'd gone through a whole bunch of ideas and work as a team to strengthen what they wanted it to be. And then today they said, we just had a conversation with a new group last week, and I think can we make one more change? Can we add something to what we did last quarter? I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. You have a new idea that's going to make it even better when we already thought what happened last quarter was a cool new process. You've got something extra that you think is going to make it even better? Double high five. Continuously improving whatever it is, because they were empowered to work towards their goal. And their goal was to not let grants stress their clients out. So the presence of agile values, it unlocks that idea for teams that they're excited. Now you might say, but how does that help us with burnout, Diane? The session today was how to use Agile to avoid burnout. Well, I'm giving you some of the foundational blocks that can help create an environment to reduce the risk for burnout. If burnout is already in place, it's going to take some time to identify what they are, to come up with some solutions and some supports for people who might also already be feeling burnout. I want to acknowledge there's the difference. If it's already in place, please feel free to reach out. I'll give you some additional suggestions on how to really address burnout that's already present within team members. Ideally, we're avoiding burnout. We're minimizing the risk of burnout is more the approach I'm taking today. So the way you work, where you work, how you work together is an important part of the conversation. What does your working environment look like? Whether you're all in person, whether you're hybrid, whether you're fully remote, you have your own unique combination of tools, of workspaces, and something called psychological safety, which means really the ability for us to feel comfortable sharing ideas, putting suggestions forward, being comfortable to take chances and risks together, to give feedback, to be honest. So we need to have tools, we need to have the workspace, and we need to have some level of psychological safety for the team to be productive. If we have these things in place, we can have fantastic team dynamics, which will lead to the reduction in risk for burnout. When we think about the ways we work together as teams, feedback is really hard. I don't know about you. I'm proud of the work I do. I'm guessing from what you've said in the chat box so far that you are also proud of the work you do. And so sometimes when we get feedback, it stings. Because it might sting in the way it was delivered. It wasn't meant to be negative. It wasn't meant to be harsh, but maybe somebody was having a bad day and the way it was delivered could have been a little softer. Or maybe they could have told you a positive and then given the feedback and then given you another positive. Feedback is tough. And so when we think about what it means to be an Agile team, what it means to create a space where we're going to create a sustainable approach to work, where we're going to minimize our risk for burnout, we're going to try and avoid burnout, having regular iterative loops for feedback is important because what it's actually doing is giving us the opportunity to make things better. But I literally, I could talk about feedback as an entirely separate, like 90-minute thing. And I just this morning read a newsletter from Radical Candor. It's a great book. It's back here too by Kim Scott. And they are conducting, they being Kim's company that wrote Radical Candor, they're conducting a survey because they're saying, whoa, like something about the feedback environment lately is different. And so they're conducting a survey to try and ascertain like what's changing in the workplace for why the feedback environment is different. Stay tuned, hot off the press. Literally read it a few hours ago and I was like, oh, okay. But the idea for feedback is that not just that it's a gift to the person who gives it, but it can be a gift to the person who receives the feedback. And we're always trying to improve the work itself. But quite frankly, what I care about more is the way we work together. If we get feedback that improves how we work together, we're going to ultimately do better work together. And that's the part that I think many groups, well-intentioned, awesome teams and groups overlook. They focus on how to improve the work and they have that conversation and they try to create a space for it. How we work together, if we improve that, we're going to make better work, whatever the work is. So there's a lot of different ways that teams will try to improve the way they work together. Some teams choose to use a happiness metric. They pay attention to their trends. Some teams pay attention to a self-reported stress metric. Lots of options. None of them are required. But if we think about how our team works together, one of the biggest things that happens is that there's a bit of a disconnect between what I have to do and what we have to do. What I have to do, what we know we have to do. I versus we. Me versus us. So I want to do a little bit of a hands-on exercise that's different than anything else. Any of you have been in a webinar with me before. This is different than anything we've ever done that is grant related. Nope, we're not writing SMART objectives. Nope, we're not talking about storytelling. This is totally different. And so I want you to grab like sticky notes and a pen or a notebook or a blank sheet of paper or like flip over an envelope that you're going to recycle later. If you want to go digital, grab your phone, grab your tablet, open a document, something where you can write or type. Let me know when you've got that ready. Go ahead, give me a quick Y for yes in the public chat, please, so that I know you've got either something physically that you're going to jot some ideas and some thoughts on, or something digital. That way I can get started with the exercise. This exercise is going to have 4 steps. You do not have to share anything about this exercise. I'm going to ask you some follow-up questions, but you don't need to share your answers with me. So don't worry about it being legible. Don't worry about your spelling. Don't worry about acronyms. This is just a quick exercise so that we can debrief at the end of the 4 steps. All right, so it looks like lots of you have grabbed your paper or opened your digital document. So let's do our first step together. Now, what I would love for you to do, now that you've got your piece of paper, this actually was the first step. Awesome job. Remember what your work is. You typed it in the public chat to me earlier. Your work is your framing. Don't worry about somebody else's work. Don't worry about my work. This is just about your work. Okay, great. Step 1, check, done. Step 2, please write or type the heading now. Under the heading now, I want you to jot down, again, spelling doesn't matter, acronyms fine, whatever penmanship you've got going on, no one can read my writing. So like, no one needs to see this, no one needs to read it, except for you. I want you to jot down the high-level big initiatives of the things you're working on right now. I'm not trying to raise blood pressure or stress in this moment. What I want to know is just, I want you to think about the big things. I got a grant report due Friday. I have a webinar that I have to teach on Thursday. I have a scope of work for a new contract that I have to do on Thursday. Right? I'm listing off big things. I'm not thinking about like the nuances that have to happen to get all those things done. Quick, high level, big initiatives. Just take a quick 60 seconds. Now I'm going to say 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Jot down the big initiatives for the things that you're working on now in this, let's say by now I'm going to say end of March because it's practically the end of February. So between now and the end of March, what are those big initiatives that you're working on right now? Go ahead, jot it down. I'm timing you. The way I will know that you're done, type in the public chat for me how many items you just jotted down. No, it is not a contest. There's no prize for who has the biggest number. Just that'll let me know that you're ready to move on to the next step. So how many big initiatives are you thinking about, big projects, however you want to frame it, between now and the end of March? And I'm not even looking at the numbers. I'm just watching the public chat roll because that's an indicator that you're ready for the next step. Okay, I'm lying. I did see that somebody called out not just their number, but they said which ones like were the high, how many high priority. I love that. That made me super happy. Okay. Yes, look at that. Great. Lots of people have finished step 2. Okay. So step 3, you are cruising through this exercise. I want you to think about soon. So please write or type the heading soon. And under that, please write or type the large initiatives, the projects, the things that are going to happen that you know you should work on, that you're certain you're going to finish, any whatever combination of those between, we're going to say April 1st and I'm going to say June 30th, July 1st, right? Somewhere in there. Like it's just about the start of summer vacation. April, May, June. Anything that you can think of. We don't need to know all the details. We don't have to list all the tasks. Maybe there's still some things that are uncertain about what you're listing, but big picture, these are the things you have a sense, yeah, that are going to come up. I'm going to type the word soon into the public chat. You're going to list your items. I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to do that. And I will know that you're ready for the final step once I see all sorts of numbers. Again, it's not a contest. It's just so I know we're ready to move on. Then you'll just type your numbers into the chat for soon. What do you think? What's coming up from April to June? Now, some of you might be like, can I check my calendar? Can I open my project management tool? I mean, you could if you want to. It's just a rough, quick exercise. So there's no pressure to be that scientifically accurate. Just whatever comes to mind. All right, I'm getting some numbers in the soon category. I'm going to let that roll in the public chat for just another moment. All right, so we've thought about now, things happening like the last few days of February and in March. We've thought about soon, the stuff that we think is coming up, April, May, June. And so what could be left? Future. Step 4 is future. So go ahead and write down or type into your document the word future. And in this space, I would love for you to list large initiatives or projects, things that are literally July 1st of 2026 and beyond. Now, I did happen to catch that Toy Story, the Pixar animated movie series, is coming out with yet another one. So I feel right in going back to my Buzz Lightyear phrase that I like for this slide, for this step. Buzz Lightyear, in case you're familiar with that little character, he's an astronaut. He always would say, to infinity and beyond. Yeah, that's how much I mean by future. July 1st of 2026, to infinity and beyond. It can be anything. It can be something later in 2026. It can be something in 2027. It could be something in 2028, because maybe you know that your 3-year grant will be up for renewal. It can be anything, big initiatives or projects that you think might happen. I don't care about the details and the little tasks, super far out. Now, you might say, oh, I need more time. I'm just going to give you a quick 30 seconds to just jot some stuff down. And I'm going to type into the public chat, future. So then go ahead, and the way I'll know that we're ready to think about these steps and what did they tell you, why was it important? We can talk about them in a second once I see that we've got some numbers in the public chat to indicate that your quick shorthand list here is complete. Awesome. I'm seeing lots of numbers coming in. We are going to be ready to move on then and think about what these 4 steps showed us. Okay, you're right. They did show that you're all very busy professionals. I totally get that. And I'm super hopeful that it didn't raise your stress level or your blood pressure at all by having to quick jot all that down. I hope it didn't. The purpose of the exercise is so that we can think about this discussion question together. You have just jotted this down, and I know I said penmanship doesn't matter, acronyms are fine, don't worry about spelling, but pretend that like it was a little more polished. People could read it. It wasn't your own personal shorthand, okay? So we'll just pretend that that was taken care of. Take your list, physical or digital, and now pretend that you're passing it to your colleague. Can they act on your list without having to talk to you? Can they act on your list without talking to you? Y for yes, N for no, M for maybe, or whatever other words and phrases are coming to mind for you in the public chat. When I do things like this, I never know what's going to happen. Now I actually have to read the public chat because these answers matter. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so we have a mix of yeses and nos. Oh, wow. All right, I have to say, in all the time that I have done this exercise, this might be the highest percentage of yeses ever. Okay, now I'm super curious, and so it's a good thing that we have the second question on the screen. So how is it that as a team, you currently communicate about your work, what's coming up? Now on the screen, I'm using a very specific phrase. It's called backlog items. That's an Agile phrase. It means the items that you have to do to achieve your goal. So like the backlog is the list of all the things you have to do to achieve the goal. So backlog item is like one space, one thing on your big list that you have to do to achieve the goal. But how do you currently communicate? So if you're willing to share, especially our yeses, the folks that said, yes, I could hand my list, how is it that you're communicating? It might be a tool answer, but it doesn't have to be. So if you're willing to share, I would love to hear, how are you currently communicating? Rhonda lets us know, because Rhonda was one of our yeses, they communicate via email and verbally. Oh, okay. What does anybody else have? Verbal, Teams. Okay, so, and by Teams, I'm interpreting that to mean Microsoft Teams, like chat channel. In person and text for Terry Lynn. Meetings, a visit every morning. Oh, Rachel, that sounds an awful lot like a very specific Agile type of meeting, whether you call it a daily huddle or a daily scrum or what, but like a daily touch point that's very short in nature is definitely one way that a lot of teams build shared understanding and exactly why they say they could pass work back and forth. Yeah. Outlook, Teams. Okay, so you've got a variety of communication methods, some synchronous, which means we are together somewhere, we are talking live, and asynchronous, things like a chat channel, things like email, where it is not necessarily live time, real time. Okay, so there's not a right or wrong answer to that question. What's important is to understand what the work is and how we can see it. So when we think about our sustainable pace, each of you wrote down some like your own list, and there were a variety of numbers that you typed into the chat. And I told you it wasn't a contest, it wasn't about the numbers, because your initiatives are different sizes. So one of the handouts that we're giving you is something called our Sustainable Pace Guide, because each team has a different answer. How many initiatives are the right number of initiatives for us to manage and not be overwhelmed and risking burnout? For some of you, it's going to be 2 because they're big initiatives. For some of you, it's going to be 7 because they're like medium-sized initiatives that you usually have going on. For some of you, you might say, oh, it's 15 because they're like 5 small and 7 mediums. Your initiatives are of different relative scales because your work is really different. So there is not a uniform answer to what is the sustainable pace that helps us avoid burnout. So this guide is one way that you can think about what is your backlog, your list of initiatives that you have going on as a team, and what is sustainable for us. I guarantee that each of you on the line has a nuanced answer. It is not going to be that there are 17 of the same answers. When we think about how we work together, and thank you, Brooke has dropped that link. It's part of your handouts for class. So when we think about your team, you shared with me the awesome skills that your team is bringing to the table. And those awesome skills, yours and theirs combined, are part of what make it so that you can achieve the initiatives that you've just been writing out in your backlog. I'm also guessing, we've got this many people on the line. That means we've got a whole bunch of different job titles and a bunch of different job descriptions. And so we're not trying to say that a team has to have a specific title to help us be an Agile team. But similarly to like maybe playing a role in theater, someone's playing a role for a short period of time, we might have different roles that would help our team be at our best self. And so there's 3 types of roles that are present in really high performing teams. And I want you to think about these roles and if they might be present. If you might go, oh, I know who on my team does this. So let me describe the 3 and then we'll think about if anyone in your team already is like this. Really high performing teams that are operating in an agile way, that have agile values present, that are operating in a sustainable way, they always, you're going to find one person who is the voice for the team, clarifying what is highest priority. Maybe even giving some input on like those backlog items, those initiatives that are coming up. But one person is going to be really a voice for the team about what is most important to do next, or what is the sequential list of priorities coming up. In those high performing teams, there's going to be one person who's maybe a great facilitator and is trying to help the team get through a sticky situation, get like something that's holding them back resolved, raising the IT ticket or putting forward a case to the leadership team, whatever it might have to be, but like something that's slowing the team down or blocking the team, they're being an advocate to try and get it resolved. So there's usually one person that's playing that role. And then there's at least one person who's doing awesome work. There could be more than one person doing awesome work. It could be 5 people doing awesome work, 7 people doing awesome work. Probably not more than 9 or 10, because otherwise it's just, that's too big of a team, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But so these roles are what we want to think about within our team. Now, one of the things that's unique in nonprofit teams that operate in an agile way is that people who are thinking about prioritization are often also doing awesome work. They have to think about both. So they're like playing 2 roles. They're in that theater playbill with 2 different roles listed. You're like, oh, all right. Well, look at them go. They've got 2 different things going on. That's a lot to learn. And same thing in nonprofits. It's really common in a nonprofit, charitable, tribal organization setting where we're going to see somebody who's kind of helping with that impediment removal. And also, they're still doing awesome work. So I just wanted to flag that's really common. But I want you to think about that priority question. In your team, is there someone who is the voice for what is the most important thing that needs to happen next? Or if someone's got a question, what's more important, this or that, for us to do? Who helps to give that prioritization? Go ahead and type their initials for me into the public chat. Their title is not important, nothing else about just their initials. Did somebody come to mind? If no one came to mind for you and there are not initials that you want to type into that public chat, the letter N would be fine. And there's no judgment in that. Just trying to help think about who is playing what role in your team. So again, who in your team is helping to provide any clarity around the prioritization of your work. If you're willing to type their initials into the public chat, or if you're not sure who it would be, you can type the letter N. This person, whoever they may be, either who has been identified or who you might want to talk about identifying, by having someone who could break a tie or provide clarity on prioritization, they are helping a team that might say, whoa, there is a lot on our plate. Lots of teams say that. I'm guessing your teams might say it too. To understand, but it is important that we do this next. It takes away some of the pressure to do all the things. It encourages the team to think about what is our sustainable pace. So I see some of you have said, nope, not sure. Some of you have someone that you think is in that role. But the reason that role is important is so that it takes away some of the like, do all the things pressure, and instead says team. This is what's most important. And this is what's most, yeah, there's more behind it. There's always going to be more behind it. Here's what's second most important. Teams that focus on one thing, let's do this, are going to finish whatever their list of all the things is. The case studies say they're going to finish those faster if they focus on the priority first versus scattering their attention across everything. So that's why that role is important. All right, let's try our second role. Little delineator in the chat box. When I describe someone who's trying to help get problems solved for your team, is there anyone that came to mind for you? Go ahead and type their initials into the public chat. This could be that you want to type more than one set of initials. You might say, well, sometimes it's Maggie, and other times it's Beth. I'm happy, totally happy to have you type more than one set of initials for this particular role. So feel free to type in at least one. And if you're wondering who might help solve impediments, make sure you also consider yourself. I should have said that for the first one too. Make sure you don't forget about yourself. It could be you. I'm not going to ask you about the third role because that literally is going to be everybody on your team. And you don't need to type all their initials in. That last role, it's everybody, right? Everybody that's doing the work, that's coming together to do awesome work. So when we come across these different roles and we're thinking about what they mean, this is not changing job titles. This is not changing job descriptions. It's about how we work together, how we play together in the work sandbox in order to achieve our goals. We have different roles that we play in order to produce our strongest work. So our teams across these three roles, the teams that are high performing, the teams that are successful, the teams that are operating at a sustainable pace and minimizing their individual and collective risk for burnout, they don't take ownership individually of the work. They take ownership of the work collectively. It is our work, not this is my work and that is your work and that is your work. They have shared ownership. They feel that it is our work, even though, yeah, we've got different degrees. Everybody's got different paths that brought them here. You have, yes, different job duties, but those collectively come together to achieve the goal, to achieve the great service delivery, to achieve the great program. Those roles, prioritization, impediment removal, doing the awesome work. Because it's not job title, because it's not job description, they're not rigid. Somebody could be out on a sabbatical for a few months, and well, maybe they used to be the one that gave prioritization information or clarity to team members, so somebody else can fill in. Somebody's on vacation. Well, that doesn't mean impediments aren't going to get solved. Somebody else could step in and play that role for a period of time. Or somebody's feeling super passionate about wanting to solve a particular blockage that's holding the team back. Yeah, good. Maybe they've got a special connection, somebody that can help with it. Great. So the roles that I described, they're not rigid, flexible in how we can use those, because that self-organizing word, the team is going to decide, how do we get our work, our list of all the things, how are we going to best get that done together? So the more creative we are in our approach together, well, that actually is pointing back to our Agile value of individuals and interactions over processes and tools. We're going to think, as a group of awesome people, how do we best work together to get this work done? There is zero pressure to have any sort of Agile titles. But because I've used like the formal Agile word, right? Capital A Agile from the Agile Manifesto, I wanted to flag that there are formal Agile team sort of titles out there. Product owner, Scrum Master, Scrum Leader. You don't need any of it. You don't need any of it. There is no pressure to use labels. The way I described the roles, totally fine. You might say, actually, well, we kind of like the idea of like having somebody be a facilitator as a role. Fine, also fine. This is about what you as a team decide will make you stronger, you faster, you happier, because each of your teams is totally unique. And I know that sounds like a funny secret sauce sort of thing to say, like, each of you has your own bottled secret sauce for how you will avoid burnout. Here is going to be a very tactical way, though, that you can build rules that will help your team. We are going to think about how to build a team working agreement. So even though each of your teams is unique, we're going to think about what are the skills that everybody brings. You already told me in the public chat, what are your awesome skills? What are your team members' awesome skills? We're going to think about what everybody brings to the table. We're going to think about why we're together. And we're going to build a working agreement that is really becomes the framing for how we work together on any and all projects moving forward. So a working agreement, or it could be a team working agreement, either phrase is great. This is going to be a way that we quickly facilitate some shared understanding among a team, because we come from very different backgrounds and we come from different preferences. Remember those 4 collaborative individuals? Different working hours, different tech preferences. Like, they had so many things that were different. They had to figure out what can be the same. What could help us work together? What's going to be our agreement that works best for all 4 of us? So a team working agreement is going to help us do that. I'm curious, has anyone ever heard of a team working agreement before? Y for yes in the chat. Question mark if you're not sure. N for no. The team working agreement is something that helps all team members. But it only, air quotes only, but it only helps within the team. This is not something that has to become something for the entire organization. It is not designed to then be for everybody. This is something that is designed for your team. It should be lightweight. It shouldn't be something that you spend more than an hour on. It could be something, though, as a structure that you're like, ooh, that was really helpful. And so I'm going to actually, I've got a new collaborative group. It's made up of 5 different organizations applying for a big grant together. I'm going to try and use that as the opening facilitation. Yep, we've seen that work successfully. It could be, actually, I used this in my Rotary Club for a project that started last July. They were 8 different individuals that had never worked together. We had some retired folks, some professional folks, different skills and backgrounds. Didn't call it a team working agreement, but followed this concept to quickly say, here's how we can work together to best achieve this huge event that's going to benefit hundreds of local children. Very true story. So the label's not what's important. Rather, it's the structure that I'm going to suggest, the different areas that you want to build some shared understanding around. So those permanent teams, but again, what one team in one larger organization says does not all of a sudden apply to everybody else. It's what one team agreed on. Any sort of one-time workplace collaborative team benefits wildly from having an agreement like this in place. And yeah, those volunteer situations are also, again, because you're like, you're in, you're out. How do we want to work together? Are we going to text? Are we going to email? What are we doing? Let's figure it out. So there's going to be 4 components for discussion. This can be like formally documented. And by formally, I mean like sticky notes physically in person or digitally on a whiteboard. It can be discussion based and not written down. That could work depending on the group. And there's a download related to team working agreement. And that way it could just be just like a fillable PDF. So you've got a wide range of options. So there's 4 sections for discussion. First of all, why are we together? Now, if it's your workplace team, you're like, oh, we know this. We know this answer. Awesome. Great. If it's like a collaborative of different organizations, let's make sure we have shared understanding about why we're together. We might be close, but let's confirm. That volunteer group I mentioned, we had to agree on what was like the definition of the final thing we were trying to achieve. But we want there to be shared understanding. What is the general idea of where we are all headed? Not how specifically are we going to get there and who's going to do what and when and on what day and in what format. We're not into that sort of nitty gritty, but what is our shared purpose? If we have that agreed upon, cool, we could move on to our next category. What are some things that we want to achieve together in service of that big, broad goal? So Agile speak, you might see this referred to if you ever read any Agile books or blogs or came to other webinars, they might call them product goals. So they're milestones along the way towards your big goal. Great. Some people have referred to them as wildly important goals in service of fine. There's a lot of different labels given to this idea, but there are goals that are set that are not your biggest purpose, but they are things if you achieve this as stepping stones towards the bigger thing. We don't need to have a big strategic plan facilitator come in. We don't need to have a whole bunch of time. No, let's come to some quick agreement. Maybe we're even referencing our strategic plan document. Maybe we're referencing the big grant guidelines for what the purpose is of the funding and what the different elements are. But like, what are we trying to get done? What are some milestone goals towards our bigger purpose? Not the list of all the things, not assignments of who's doing what. We're going to figure that out later together. But quick, high level. What is it we're going to try and achieve together as we move towards our purpose? That first section and second section, if we were to say we're going to spend an hour, if we were to say we're going to spend a half an hour, probably like half is going to be on purpose and goals is my usual assumption on facilitation. Might go faster, but probably half. Then we can think about the rules by which we operate. Google, Teams. In person, only on Zoom. Only in text, only over email. Right? You're like, oh, we're all volunteers. So lots of us have day jobs. So most of our work is actually going to be outside of business hours. So one of our rules might be we're going to meet after business hours. On the other hand, you might be like, Our teams are across multiple time zones, and so we're only going to meet between 10 a.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern. Or what, I don't know, like you get to make your own work rules about styles and how we interact. If you have more than 10 different rules, that's probably too many. By having these rules, you're helping to set boundaries for the team. Boundaries lead to minimized risk for burnout. Different teams, different rules. One of the rules in our team's working agreement is that when you are out, whether you are out because you are sick or you are out because of personal time or you are out because of vacation, you do not check chat, you do not check email. Set your away message on that email and the team has got you covered. You do not check. The team gets really upset with each other if they break that rule. They're like, no, you're out. Stop. Because they want them to, right? And so to them, that's a super important rule. I work with other teams where they're like, no, I don't want to be that far behind. I'm going to I get to check. I'm a grown up. I can check for a minute. I'm like, hey, that's your own rule, right? So no judgment on which one's right or wrong, but the team should decide so that you don't have one person who's like, when I'm out, I want to be out. And somebody else who's like, no, I want to check. Because there's different expectations and they create different pressure. And that by itself can lead to an unsustainable pace for people that can lead to burnout. So this work styles conversation sounds like lightweight and kind of silly sometimes, but is what sets internal boundaries that ultimately the team might use to set external boundaries that they want to uphold as well. I know I could go down a whole deep different conversation about boundaries. Our team's all about them. How do we set them? How do we uphold them? How do we help each other uphold them in service of sustainable pace and not being burned out? But there is one fourth section, and this is the collaboration section, or the rockstar skills section, or the humble brag section. But where do you know who brings which awesome skills? When I use this structure, this working team agreement idea in grant application settings, I'm going to ask, but who loves budgets and budget justifications? Who loves logic models? Who loves storytelling? Like people in a team setting, somebody's gonna be like, oh yeah, Jonna Rogers is always gonna be like, I love logic models. And Pierre Chin is gonna be like, budget narrative all day long. Find the things that people love, that they feel really good about, that they feel really strong in. And all of a sudden you see this team that's super cross-functional, that's gonna be able to self-organize around, wait a second, so if you love that, and if you love that, especially if they've never worked together on a project of any kind, they're like, wow, okay, we have all these different awesome skills. Here's, I think, a creative way that we could get from here to there. And they're going to come up with an awesome solution that's going to create the best work possible. Now, I know that's a really fast overview of working team agreement. There's the handout as part of today's webinar. But the idea is if you have structures like this in place, if you think about how do we work together, what is the best way for us to work together? If you think about the 3 roles that are present in team, again, title is not important, prioritization, impediment removal, and doing the awesome work. You are setting the stage, you're creating structure where the 4 Agile values can thrive. Do the 4 Agile values thrive in the same way each and every day? No. It's usually that one feels pretty strong on one day. And it's not that the others aren't present, but they're not what are needed that day. So the 4 values ebb and flow in where the team is. But if you find yourself stuck, if you're trying to think about why this particular project might feel tricky or why we might feel stuck, looking at the 4 Agile values and saying, are they present? Is there one that feels like we should focus on? They can often provide ideas and examples of what you might do. In fact, there are 12 principles that are under those 4 values. So like our 4 values are our big umbrella. Then there's 12 principles under them that are more tactical, more daily logistical about teams that you might even enjoy learning more about if you find yourself getting stuck. When we think about our agile way of working as a team, it's about the unique collaboration in your setting. You each have unique skills. Each and every team member is bringing different skills, different backgrounds. And one of the things that teams often, they get so busy doing the work that's supposed to be done. One of the things that teams will sometimes forget is not that they're supposed to learn enough about each other's work that they could like do the work, like totally replace that person, but your team members are awesome and you're awesome. So you want to think about what it means to be, call it T-shaped. I'll show you on the screen, T-shaped. So what that means is that I have my area of depth, my area of awesomeness, my skills that are what I would have typed for rock star qualities. And I want to have one arm out and I'm going to teach somebody something about that. Hopefully every week I teach somebody just a little something. And I'm going to, you know what, there's something I want to learn. There's something I want to learn every week from somebody else. So the idea that we're constantly teaching others in the team something from our awesome skill set and background, and we're also learning something from at least one person in the team, that produces more unique ideas on how we get from point A to point B. It creates a way that we can do things that are called, they're unique ways of describing collaboration. And one is, it's called swarming. Now, I'm allergic to bees, so this one took me a while to get used to. But if you think about what swarming means and what it might bring to mind as an image, yeah, I do. I think bees and swarms. I'm like, I need my EpiPen. But it's the idea that multiple people are coming together to work to achieve a goal, to work to complete an initiative, to work to complete a project. If we've been teaching each other a little something, if we've been learning a little something from each other all along the way, it makes for a deeper collaboration, a more effective way of swarming to get something moved to the finish line together. Because you're each awesome and you each have your own really unique path for how you got to your professional setting right now, you're going to take that knowledge of what you learn and interact with from your other team members, and you're going to see new unique paths, new unique ways. Hey, what if we tried it this way that somebody's never thought of before? Ultimately, that will make you better and faster as a team. I know it sounds a little silly, maybe a little hokey, but by doing that, testing new ways of working together, what you're doing is you're self-organizing around the work. Teams that think about and improve how they work together, constantly saying, hey, what if we did this? What if we tried that? Teams that are constantly talking about improving how they work together, not the work itself, how they work together, one thing at a time. Teams that do that accelerate exponentially compared to teams that don't. Teams that don't tend to stay rather flat with what they achieve. Yet they are being given more and more demands, and the risk for burnout is really high. Teams that constantly think about how the way they work together could be different, how it could be better. Just maybe little small changes, maybe one a week, but only one at a time. Case studies show continuous improvement in what they are able to achieve, which means that even if there are more demands being placed on them, they're coming up with new, unique, creative ways to address the problems, and their risk for burnout, I'm not saying it disappears, their risk is lower for burnout. I could talk about Agile literally for like 4 afternoons straight. In fact, ask my team that I teach a class that's just like that. So I'm like, whew, 90 minutes about avoiding burnout. That was tough. And I tried not to talk so super fast, but I'm guessing you might have questions. Totally watching the public chat for any you have now. You've been so amazing participating there the whole time during today's webinar, but you can also email me directly, diane@dhleonardconsulting.com. Happy to answer any questions that come up at any time with these concepts. I'm going to pass it back to Brooke, but if you're willing, I give you a lot of ideas. There are a lot of language. We talked about backlog, working team agreements, self-organization. There's one thing that you're going to try. Remember, I said I was going to make a note. if there's one thing you're going to try or one thing that you're going to go back and discuss with your team as a result of today, I would love, 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 be so grateful to see you type it out in the public chat. And with that, I'll watch for your one thing, but back to you, Brooke.
Yay, thank you, Diane. Another incredible webinar on the books. I did put a link to today's webinar feedback survey for y'all in the chat. And then as you are answering her question about the one thing, I will put it again at the bottom just for easy access. But we hope you can complete it for us. It's about 3 minutes long and it is anonymous. So you don't have to worry about your name or email being attached to it. Just helps us at the Native Learning Center know what is working and what we can hopefully improve upon for the future. And we do share the feedback with our instructors. So it's helpful to you, the attendees, us, the NLC, and Diane, the instructor, as well. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That is going to be on Thursday this week. This will be about new markets tax credits. Adam Rose from Trovoy will be presenting that. You will just log in like you did today. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, or 10 a.m. if you are in Alaska. And this will be an hour-long webinar. So for me, it's Eastern, 2 to 3. And the rest of the time zones. Cool. You'll be able to check out this as well as our other recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. I will post this one tomorrow morning. It takes usually overnight for the recordings to generate. But I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel, especially the Cathedra webinar archive. It's its own playlist. YouTube, of course, is a free service for you to use. And we have all kinds of good stuff on there. If you ever need help finding a recording of a specific topic, you can always shoot me an email. I just put my email for you into the chat. We hope you can check out our other, excuse me. We hope you can check out our other upcoming training events. We post them onto our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you are somebody who enjoys listening to podcasts, we have our own. We hope a thing a Native American podcast, which you can listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts. Or if you like to actually watch us interview our guests, we post those recordings to our YouTube channel. And we will actually have a new episode coming out tomorrow at noon. So be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the webinar. Thank you, Diane, for all your hard work. And again, y'all, I have put the webinar feedback survey link for you into the chat. And if you need those links to the helpful resources that she shared, you can find those in the shared notes section if you don't feel like scrolling all the way back up to the top of the chat. I'm going to leave it on the webinar feedback survey, just as a friendly reminder, but I am going to go ahead and turn off the recording, folks, but we appreciate you.